We're going to go this afternoon until 5:15. And I just wanted to briefly introduce Pat. This is her second visit with us. She did the first part of a program of training in anti-racism that was wonderful and very well received. And what I didn't realize then is that Pat Savage Williams is currently the president of the Evanston Township High School Board, my alma mater. She's served as president for 5 years, which is incredible. That's a wonderful dedication, and maybe just a little bit of masochism involved in that as well. I've been to school board meetings, and they are challenging, and only have become more so. Professionally, Pat works at New Trier High School. She is there as a special education coordinator and an equity liaison. She facilitates beyond diversity at New Trier and within the Evanston community as well. She is a certified SEED facilitator that's seeking educational equity and diversity, and serves on the national SEED staff to train and certify new facilitators from across the country. This work runs in Pat's blood. She has a passion for this equity work, born of her own experience growing up, but certainly as her experience working in the world. She is been living in the Evanston/Skokie community with her husband for more than 37 years. She has 2 young adult daughters who are recent college graduates. She's been an educator for more than 35 years and started her career as a school psychologist after receiving her bachelor's and master's degrees from Indiana University in educational psychology. And later she attended National Louis University in her degree in educational leadership and administration. She is a published author, and throughout her career worked closely to create more equitable and inclusive spaces. And so we are so pleased to have Pat with us this afternoon. Pat, the program is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Rabbi Cohen, for that great introduction. And I just really appreciate being here and being back here. And I have to say, I've been talking about this group a lot because you've been on my mind as I've been preparing for this. But I've been talking about the work that you have taken upon yourself over these last couple of years to really dive into this topic and really try to understand the complexity of race and what it means to you personally, what it means to you as an institution. And I applaud you and really am excited to do this. So I'm gonna go right ahead and jump in right now, which means I am going to share my screen. And you can all see that, correct? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So today we're going to talk about trying to battle this thing of racism. At the end of our session, I'm hoping that you will be able to identify some healthy, actionable steps that you can expect to do personally as we move forward with this really important work. It's always challenging to talk about next steps. I think it's a lot easier just to kind of teach about what race is, talk about the definitions and equity versus equality. Those things are really easy to do because that's just giving information. But when we get to the place of trying to figure out what's next, that's where it becomes challenging. It's hard because one has to identify what gets in the way. The courageous conversations that need to occur can sometimes be pretty scary. So it's helpful to kind of review some things, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking to you about just basics, but I just want to kind of set the stage here. So in order to do that, let's see, I'm at work with multiple screens, so I hope that everyone, and I probably should have sent this ahead of time, everyone has an old-fashioned notebook or paper and a writing utensil. So I hope you can reach and grab that fairly easily. I think many of you are at home or in your home office, so I'm hoping you can get that. That's kind of important. At some point, I kind of think it's just really helpful just to write things. I always like to start with a land acknowledgement, and I think I did this when I was here before. In Northfield, we want to make sure that we pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting today. And I know that you're in different places, so I always like to ask participants when we're on Zoom to just think about that. Think about where you are and think about the fact that we are all on stolen land. And this is important, especially during the month of November, because the month of November is Native American Heritage Month. So it is important to do that because remembering the history honors the contributions and the traditions of Indigenous people. And it's one step towards fighting their erasure. So we ask that everyone be conscious of their place here in Northfield. These were the homelands or are the homelands of the Kaikapu, Peoria, Potawatomi. Those are just some of the Native Americans that were here. So we pay respect to the elders and always want to extend recognition to any of their descendants if they're here today. And as I said, I'm impressed by the work you've been doing. So I just want to start by saying you may not hear anything new today because we've heard it, you've read it, you've studied it. Sometimes it's helpful to hear it again, hear how it's said again, and just really think about, oh yeah, that was important to me. Yeah, that was something that I want to keep remembering. I don't want that to fall out of my mind. So what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. Essentially, there's nothing new under the sun. So I'm not trying to come here and present you with a bunch of new stuff, especially since it's all been done or said, and you've done it and said it. What I am doing is trying to highlight enough of these important matters, these complex matters, so that you can take them and own them and make use of them. So I like this, and I think I did this before. This is, if we were in person, I'd have you all stand. But since we're not, I'm gonna just have you just do a thumbs up like this, just with your thumb. And I am gonna stop sharing just so that everybody can see. So if you don't mind turning on your camera, and I'll just quickly read these. I just have a few of them this time. So give me a thumbs up if you are a parent, and a thumbs up if you've attended an event with race as the primary conversation, either through Temple Jeremiah or another venue like SEED or Beyond Diversity. Great. Thumbs up if you've attended a Family Action Network or FAN event, either virtually or in person. Thumbs up if you've watched a movie about race or a play like Selma, Get Out, 13th, Colin in Black and White, or I Am Not Your Negro, or anything else. Thumbs up if you visited the National Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C., or the Legacy Museum from Enslavement to Mass Incarceration, or the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. All right, thumbs up if you've read White Fragility, What Does It Mean to Be White, or anything by Robin DiAngelo. We're gonna watch a video by her in a minute. Thumbs up if you've worried or worry about race and racism. Thumbs up if you recognize the problems with the colorblind approach when it comes to race. Thumbs up if your community is known for its racial diversity. Thumbs up if you've been upset or responded to any of the tragic deaths, like deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, or watching the trials of those who are on trial for murder. Okay, thumbs up if someone you love has ever been discriminated against based on a piece of their identity. Okay, thank you. Thank you for indulging. All right. I'm gonna share my screen again. This time, make sure that I have sound. And doing that one. Okay. So just to set the stage, I thought I would start us off by watching a video. It's 4 minutes. Robin DiAngelo talks about debunking the most common myths white people tell about race.
This is the checkers game where grandson and granddad will bond.
To be white in so many ways is to be raised to be functionally illiterate on the topic of race. I am white, and part of being white is that I was not raised to see myself in racial terms. I mean, I understood that somebody had race, but not really me. To be white is to see oneself outside of race, to see oneself as a unique, special individual, exempt from the forces of socialization. I'll never forget a moment of standing beside a black man leading a workshop on race, and a white woman said to him, "I don't see color." He said, "Well, then how are you going to see racism? Because I am black. I do think you know that, and I have a different experience than you do. And you're not going to be able to understand that, and you're not going to be able to support the parts of that experience that are really painful and problematic if you refuse to acknowledge my reality." I don't see color is really a way of saying I refuse to acknowledge your reality. What's important about that narrative is it reveals what the person thinks racism is. So if the person is using proximity, fondness across race as evidence of a lack of racism, in order for that to be good evidence, a racist must not be able to do that. So that rests on an understanding that a racist cannot tolerate proximity to people of color. And I'm hoping that we can see that's pretty absurd because, trust me, even avowed racists can tolerate being around people of color, and often are. You cannot talk about any other issue without talking about how race informs that issue. And when someone says it's about class, that tends to function as a way to get race off the table. First of all, we're already divided by race. And focusing on race is not what did it. I would say not focusing on race, refusing to grapple with how race shapes virtually everything is what keeps us divided. And that is a very white narrative. All of those narratives function to get race off the table, close the exploration, exempt the person from any further engagement, and protect the racial hierarchy and the white position with it, which is an unequal hierarchy. The challenge I want to offer my fellow white people is changing the question from if to how. So dominant culture asks, if I'm racist. And I want to change that question to, how have I been shaped by the forces of racism? How is racism manifesting in my life? Because it circulates 24/7, 365. None of us can be, and none of us were exempt from its forces. And this is where individualism can come in. I have a particular story, but that story didn't exempt me. And so I can ask myself, how did all the things I see as unique about me set me up into the overall racist structure? Because it did.
All right. Okay. So I want you to just hold on to some of those concepts that Robin talks about. And I'm going to introduce a tool that some of you may have seen before, but I often ask the question, what is your capacity for developing solutions to address race or racism? What is your capacity to have these conversations? And it's important, and we talk about this word courageous conversations. But what I want to say about it, I want to offer today is that these conversations come with a cost. And that cost is this zone right here. There's a level of stress. We call it the zone of productive distress. So if you look at these two axioms, the X and the Y axiom, you'll see that disequilibrium will happen, and it will happen over time. And this is important because a lot of people have trouble staying in the conversation about race. And in order to stay in the conversation about race, they recognize that there's a level of anxiety and stress that's present. And what's important is, one, to be ready to expect that to happen, and two, to stay in that zone and recognize that being uncomfortable is not necessarily a bad thing. So what some people might do with the disequilibrium is this red line right here, and that means they just avoid it. Or if the stress becomes too much and too high, they'll do anything to take it down, a technical solution. And a technical solution might mean you might go to a movie and just watch a movie about a different race, or you might hold like a multicultural dinner and have a lot of different races. People bring their food and bring it to a big dinner, which isn't always the bad thing because I like food. But what happens with technical solutions is no conversations happen and no learning happens. And so that's why we call it a technical solution. So we try to find that place of tolerance, and this is kind of an individual reflection. Where is your disequilibrium not too high and not too low, but right in this zone that keeps you productive? And I'm an educator, so I know that this to be true. I know that we have to make sure that students kind of expect some type of quiz or test, or we have to hold them accountable so that they do the work. If there's no accountability, most kids won't do much. I know that. So that's what we mean by the zone of productive distress, or sometimes I just simply call it that swiggly zone. That's another way to put it. So staying in the zone, I want you to think about that cultural competency, competence for social justice. That's a self-assessment that I had you complete. And it is a self-assessment. It's something that that I ask you to do just to reflect on your own skills, just to reflect where you are. It was developed by these two ladies, and they are Myla Esqualium and Eve Williams, and it's all based on Diane Goodman's model of cultural competency for social justice. And those areas: self-awareness, understanding and valuing others, skills to interact effectively with a diverse group of people in a variety of situations, and skills to foster equity and inclusion. There's a lot of reliability and validity. And as you know, we're not going to ask you to talk about your responses, but we just want you to be aware of what your responses are. And I would encourage you to take this assessment, like again, maybe not next week, maybe not tomorrow, but maybe in about 6 months, take it again and compare your results today to where they might be after you've done more work in a few months. So that's one piece. And the other piece I asked you to do is detour spotting. I sent a piece and asked you to read this piece and identify 5 detours. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'll put this in the chat. I'm going to put this in the chat, and I'm going to ask you basically to fill out this form. And we'll just look at some of the more common detours. So if you would just take a few minutes, you can turn off your screen if you want, and read through these and just select 5 detours. When you do the form, just submit your responses and we'll just watch the form grow. Okay, we've got responses are coming in. All right, I'm gonna show the screen. And you can, again, this is another tool that you can always come back to. I always believe that it's important for people to realize that we're not trying to embarrass anybody or call anybody out. We just want folks to think and reflect personally. So it's all anonymous. Think and reflect personally about where you are, what's getting in the way. So this is where we are right now for this detour spotting. see, can I make this a little bit bigger? Can you see that better? And this is very, very common when I do this, and I've done this with many, many groups. If we look at the detours in that list, the one that seems to always come up the highest is silence. That's what's getting in the way. And again, I'm not trying to blame anybody or call anybody out. We've all been there. We've all had moments where something was done or said and it didn't feel right. And we didn't say anything. We didn't do anything. And all I ask is that you go back and reflect on the silence. Silence seems to come up a lot, often. Anything else on detour spotting?
I have a question. Can you read those? Because they're sort of cut off.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yes. So the ones that are, silence is one, but the first one is I'm colorblind. Let's see. Okay, here they are. I'm colorblind, the rugged individual, the level playing field, the bootstrap theory, pulling one up by their bootstraps, reverse racism, blame the victim, the white knight or white missionary, innocent by association. This is, but what about me? The whitewash, I was an Indian in my former life, or I was a Black person in my former life. The isolationalists, bending over backwards, teach me or help me please, white on white and righteously so. Smoke and mirrors, the accountant, the certified innocence, silence, exhaustion and despair, sound, the retreat. So I also gave you, well, I gave you this, and I gave you an article that really gave you a lot more information. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, I'll make sure that Rabbi Heaps has that and she can share that with you as well. Okay. So what I'd like you to do now is to spend just a little bit of time in breakout rooms and talk among yourself. Sometimes with a large group and a little bit of time, it's hard to really have extensive conversations. So we'll send you to breakout rooms and have you talk some more about what's getting in the way for you. What are some detours? And just talk about that social justice self-assessment that you did. And then we'll come back in about 5 minutes. We won't take long. 5 minutes in breakout rooms. Okay.
Howdy. Oh, is this the breakout room?
No, this is the main room.
Okay, well, what's my breakout room?
Do you
It sent
see
me there and then it sent me back to my regular one.
Ah, okay. Do you see a button at the bottom of your screen? It looks like 4 squares. It says breakout rooms.
Yep,
If you hit that, you can hit join breakout rooms.
got it.
Hey, Dave, are you having some breakout room difficulties? Did it not send you automatically?
Maybe you walked away.
Okay. Sorry, it sent you guys automatically.
That's okay. Myself back. Are you timing it? Bye heaps, I didn't.
Yeah, we're only at 1 minute so far.
Good. Thanks.
No problem.
I got to get used to it getting dark so soon.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. Messes with your brain.
Yes.
I do appreciate how everything in your room there looks color coded.
Yeah.
The art and the painting, and it looks like your jacket is green and your stuff. You are just all you have a brand color, it looks like.
Well, can you tell green is my favorite color?
I guess a little bit.
It happens to be one of the colors for Nutria. And I did have a conversation with the person doing the painting, and I said, what do I have to do to get a green wall? Just one.
You just have to be you, apparently.
Very nice. All right. How are they doing?
We got 2 more minutes.
Okay, good, good.
We'll come back at, for us, 4:38.
Okay. That is that handout that I just sent.
Oh, to send around?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that's in the article, but it's just sometimes it's just a little easier to see it this way.
I'm gonna close the rooms. They'll have 60 seconds to come back.
Okay. How many rooms did we have? 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Another 30 seconds.
Okay.
The fact that they're not coming back makes me think that they are all still in the middle of a sentence.
Yes. That's right. All right, here they come. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. I apologize. I know that it's hard. Breakout rooms are a challenge because right when you're in the middle of a thought or an amazing sentence, you get that banner and then you're cut off. So I'm sorry. So why don't we just take just a little bit of time? There were 4 rooms, and if we could just hear one person from each room, just kind of share a little in terms of what you discussed.
So room 1 was Babette, Barbara, and Emily.
Go ahead, Emily.
Okay, we identified, well, we had a short amount of time. So we
Yeah.
focused on just the first 2 that were mentioned, which were, but what about me, and silence. With silence, I'll just get through that. It's not so much that we're not speaking up. It's just we're afraid of saying the wrong thing in mixed company.
Yes.
So that's where, that's our problem. And in the, but what about me? I expressed, and I don't know, there may have been some, it's more just like not being a white woman, but what about the Jewish experience? It was more just like, oh, but we've had a hard time too, but it's not really ever in mixed company, do I think that either. So.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for sharing.
So room 2 was Alon, the Dons, and Ken.
I think Alon should speak.
Alon's also in the car. I don't know if she can unmute right now.
Okay, I can hear you. Okay, so you're gonna have to help me. We spoke about the tiredness statement. I don't know, have the exact wording for that statement. And then Ken, which is the one that was, you have to help me, Ken. What were you thinking?
Yeah, I think what we did is we each mentioned one that we kind of relate to in ourselves, right? That each of us highlighted. I mean, silence being one. In my case, it was where was it? I don't even remember. I hate this. Too many.
Hey, Don, you can always chip in.
Yeah. Right, the I'm sorry and the silence and the.
It was the first one, Ken, one of the first.
I'm
colorblind. I had a flash. I'm sorry.
It's either I'm colorblind or America's the land of opportunity.
I thought it was just silence we were talking about.
No, there was another one. I had a flashback.
Don't blame me.
I forget which heading it was, but I had a flashback to college. It actually wasn't a category I chose, but I remember being put off. You know, we were all freshmen, and then a group was trying to form a Black Study Center, and I thought we'd get more done working together than breaking into pieces. I don't feel that way now, but I certainly could relate to feeling that way then.
Thank you.
All right, so room 3 was Stephen, Dana, Rachel, and Nancy and Arnie.
Oh, come on, Dana. Cough it up. No,
I'm gonna let someone else talk.
Okay, silence was my biggest one. I would say that was the primary focus of my, being on it, seeing things happen and just not feeling comfortable intervening, speaking up, feeling guilty, that kind of thing. So that was my big one. Alon, or who else was in our breakout room? Rachel Gold was in our breakout room.
Nancy had mentioned some stuff.
Nancy Eisenberg.
Yeah, the one that came that resonated with me initially first was exhaustion. Just feeling like I try, but it's hard to break through and feel like you're making a difference. And then the other one that I talked about a little bit was not always recognizing what might be perceived as racist, if you're on the other end of a comment or, just an issue. And I feel like I continue to learn new, about that whole concept as I go along, as I read more, as I participate in groups like this. Just, how you word things and questions that you ask, people of color that, just they're inappropriate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. And the last group was Trudy, Phyllis, Francis, and Karen.
Anybody want to talk, or I will?
Yeah, Francis, why don't you? I have a dog barking in the background. I'm sorry.
Okay. We talked about silence also, and exhaustion a little bit. Also, not sure if this is the right one, but kind of this white knight syndrome, like we have this idea about what would be right for other groups, and we just go ahead and do it without finding out if that's really the right thing to do. Let's see, anyone want to add anything from my group?
Well, we talked, I think, just briefly about wanting to be taught as opposed to the work that we ourselves have to do and not putting the burden on other people to do it.
Great. All right. Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for thinking about that and engaging. That's actually, Phyllis, a great segue to what I'm going to show you next. Share my screen again. Another tool, thinking about this. And if you've taken some of my sessions, you'll know that I talk a lot about self-reflection, and in self-reflecting, we ask that you think about what are some mirrors and what are some windows in what you've seen or heard. We've just done an activity and there were probably many windows and lots of mirrors for you as you went through that detour spotting list. Mirrors are anything that reminds me of myself, something that I can really relate to. It's like a mirror to me. And a window is seeing something completely different, a new perspective, perhaps something I've not thought of before. So as I proceed here, I'm going to ask you to think of and identify windows and mirrors for yourself. And that's what I'd like you to do in your journal. So I want you to write down windows and mirrors, just those two words in your journal or your paper, or whatever you have in front of you.
Can I ask one quick question, Pat?
Certainly.
Could you give us an example of a window and a mirror? That might help direct us a little bit.
Yeah. So, so we often use this in curriculum. So when students read books, we want to make sure that they have a combination of windows and mirrors. If they read books and the protagonist is always about somebody that looks like them, and we find that many of the white students see something that looks like them. It's about them. And students of color don't see that. They don't see that mirror. They often see a window because it's a whole different culture. It's a whole different perspective. And so they don't really get they don't get the balance of windows and mirrors. So when we just, for example, did the detour spotting activity, many of the detours that came up, the silence, for example, that might be a mirror for many of you, because many of you said that that's what you see in yourself, silence. That's something that you can identify with. Whereas maybe knowing and understanding that, or that whole colorblind approach, if I were to say it's okay to be colorblind, hopefully that would not be a mirror for you, because you understand the difference of being colorblind. You know that. You know that's the case. So we want to make sure that when you engage in this work, that you're open to perhaps learning something new. You're open to seeing just something different. That's a different perspective. Does that make sense? Windows and mirrors. So I'm going to show you, we'll get to practice this. I'm going to show you some videos. They're short videos. And what I'm going to ask you to do is identify windows and mirrors in all of the videos. So this one, we'll just watch about 1.5 minutes of this first video. Can you hear?
No, we can't hear it.
Okay. That's probably because I didn't click that little box. Okay, let me do this again. Yep, there it is.
I don't see it.
It's
Or
not
hear it.
appearing. I don't see it or hear it.
You're not seeing this? Oh,
No,
you know.
we're not seeing it or hearing it.
Okay, so sorry.
There you go.
So let me
See
try
it?
this. You can see it. Can you hear it? Can you hear it?
No.
No.
We
Now
need
we
to
can.
shift the
Now we
conversations
can.
about race away from individual actors and acts of hatred. Those are significant, but most racial damage is done through less visible actions, often through policies and norms in our organizations and communities. Some say we should be colorblind and ignore race, but that would mean ignoring the biases that are inherent in our systems, the rules and routines that perpetuate inequity. Anti-racism calls for explicitly taking race into account in order to disrupt racialized hierarchies for the sake of promoting social justice and respect for human dignity. How can we work toward anti-racism?
First, remember that racial justice is a journey, not a destination. Understand that others might be at a different point in their growth, and keep in mind that we all have blind spots. Engage in difficult conversations. Many of us are uncomfortable talking about race. We're concerned we might say something wrong. We need to acknowledge the discomfort and lean into it. Examine best practices and existing resources. What have others done that can provide guidance for you? We must disrupt existing policies and practices. It can't just be add folks of color and stir. It's more than compositional diversity. It's about challenging our assumptions about every aspect of how our organization functions. How do we recruit employees? Who is in the room when decisions are being made? How are people evaluated and promoted? Do we rely on informal social networks for key decisions? At the University of Dayton, being anti-racist means...
Okay, that's all I'm gonna play of that one. Remember, think of windows and mirrors as we go through these. And this is about a 45-second.
Lame.
Thank you.
Again, think of windows and mirrors as we transition to the last video.
Who said that?
The lady at the store.
That is not a compliment.
It's an ugly, nasty word, and you are going to hear it. Nothing I can do about that. But you are not going to let that word hurt you.
You got your ID? In case they stop you.
Now, when you get pulled over,
I'm a good driver.
baby,
Don't worry.
this is not about you getting a ticket. This is about you not coming home.
I'm gonna be okay. Right? Okay. You are not pretty for a black girl. You are beautiful, period. Okay? Don't ever forget that.
So I'd like you to just take 1 minute and just jot down windows and mirrors from those 3 videos for you. Okay, we're gonna move on. I had hoped to have more conversation, but I'm again getting a little anxious about the time. So I just want you to hold on to those journals and keep asking yourselves the questions. What was surprising to you as you looked at those 3 examples of disrupting race and racisms and some of the patterns? What resonated with you? What were mirrors and what were windows for you? We're going to move to our last piece, which is you identifying your sphere of influence. And you may have already been here and thought about this, but in thinking about how we can actually develop actionable steps to disrupt racism, the first thing to do is look at where our sphere of influence is. What can we do? So I've pulled up this resource to kind of help us look at our sphere of influence. The sphere of influence always starts with yourself. You can always do that reflection, that individual work with yourself. And then if you go up a little bit more, your contact with your partner, your family, your immediate family, your children is always right there for you. And then even a little further, we're just getting ready to get into the holidays. Extended family will be all around us. So another usual point of influence. And then up from there, families, our friends, neighbors, personal acquaintances, and then keep going to employers, schools, professional contacts, and then even bigger government, social network, and then even bigger interactive network or social providers. And it all depends on where you are, what we call politics of location is, just really how big your influence is. And so what I'd like you to do right now is just identify your most influential spheres. Identify 2 or 3 of them. Maybe always include yourself, and then identify 2 others from this list. Partner, children, or extended family. I kind of bunch those together. And then the others, just identify 2 of them along with yourself.
What does number 6 mean?
Interactive network and service providers is if you have influence beyond like your community, if you have influence, say of a big organization or corporation, you have some influence that can really touch like a lot of people, even people that you don't know.
Yeah,
a lot of network.
Pat, we're within a synagogue.
Yes.
And anyway, I just
so even thinking about
I think it's important to think about the fact that we are within an institution, within a community.
You are. So you're within a synagogue, but you even have influence within that synagogue. So I would say Rabbi Cohen would have this, number 6. He'd have that and you don't have to choose this one, of course, but he would have the ability to influence a network beyond those that he knows. And some others of you may, but some of you may find that your interaction, your influence might be with professional acquaintances or 3, whatever. It's just important to identify which ones you could influence most easily. What's at your fingertips? Spheres of influence are often apparent. They're in plain sight, and we don't always identify them. That's why it's important to take the time and recognize that you all have a sphere of influence, and all of the influences are important. It's just as important to influence your peers and your coworkers as it is that big, huge network. Okay, so did everybody select a couple? So what I'm gonna ask you to do, I'm gonna ask you to do another one of those technology activities. So Ibram Kendi, who wrote the book How to Be an Anti-Racist, explains that one either allows racial inequities to persevere as a racist or confronts racial inequities as an anti-racist. Ibram Kendi believes that there's no in-between safe space or non-racist space. The claim of not racist or neutrality is a mask for racism. And so I'm gonna ask you to go to this Jamboard. I don't know if you're familiar with Jamboards. Are you familiar with Jamboards? Some are, some are not. Okay. So go to the Jamboard. Let's see. Were you able to get there? Did it work for you?
Is the link gonna be in the chat?
Yes.
You put the prompt in, but not the link.
Okay. All right, let me try this again. That's not what I want. Okay, let me.
Yeah, again, it's the prompt, but not the link.
Okay.
If you want, you can share it with my email and I can share the link.
Okay.
And my email is in the chat too.
Okay, let me find it. I think. Okay, let's see. Let me try one more. Yes, here it is. Okay, I think I got it now. No, that's not it, right?
Do you see all the way in the top right, there's a button that says share of the Jamboard?
Yes.
And if you click it, it should open a little pop-up where you can copy the link.
Yes, I did copy the link. Let me see if I can do it again. There it is.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
All right, everyone should see it in their chat now.
Okay, good. You're all getting on it. Okay, so the way it works is if you go to that square, this is the one I like. If you go to the square in the middle, you get like a sticky note, and you can click on the sticky note and just type in what you could do for one of your spheres of influence. So if you go here, yes, you can go here and you can type in, I could talk to my boss. And if you save that, it'll just show up. You can make it any color you want. Is everybody seeing that?
I hate to say it, but I think time might not allow this little exercise.
I think we can
I
do
don't
it.
know. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, just throwing it out there.
It's a beginning. It's a beginning.
Understood. It's a great concept, by the way.
You can do as many as you want. You don't have to be limited to one.
I'm not sure how to get the letters so I can post notes.
So if you go right here to the sticky note, it's like the fourth one down.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, good.
Click on that. Then
Great.
you'll get a
Thank you.
sticky note. You can choose your color. You can type in your stuff and post
I
it.
was playing on the, yeah, good, thanks.
Yes, sure. I just love watching these grow. Okay, so I'm gonna just ask you, anybody, to just unmute yourself and just read one of these that you didn't write. Just read one that you didn't write. And I just want to hear some of the I could statements from this group.
Okay, I'll read one. It says, I ask questions of peers such as, what did you mean by that?
Okay, thank you. Somebody else. Anybody?
Conduct difficult conversations with partners in our foundation.
Great. Somebody else.
What did you mean by that? That's a tough one.
Make a list of equity terms to share with colleges with which I consult.
Great.
I could get on a hiring committee at work.
Right.
I could engage with my son-in-law. Interesting, really interesting.
All right. So I know we're out of time. I'm always running out of time. And I'm sorry that we're out of time, but what I want you to do is just really think about your sphere of influence and your I could statements, what you could do, and then go back to what we did earlier and think about the detours, your self-assessment, and what's getting in the way. You know that these are things you could do, and you've heard some things that others could do, and then identify what's getting in the way so that you could actually and would actually go and do those things. So, boy, I think it's really important for us to always continue learning, continue reflecting, and always, always think about what we could do. I think it's such an important thing to do. So I have a quick exit form, but I think what I'll do is send it to Rabbi Heap so that you won't be kept over time, and she can send it out to all of you. I really appreciate your time, and I really hope that you take the time to do the exit form. It's quick, but it gives me some feedback on this whole process, and I don't get better unless I get feedback from all of you. So once again, thank you. Thank you for your time, Rabbi.
Thank you so much, Pat. And I want to especially thank our Social Justice Committee, to thank Dana and Barbara and Nancy for helping to make this opportunity available to all of us. And again, thank you so much, Pat, for the work that you do and what you've done for us this afternoon.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you all. Continue your work. I just want to encourage you. Continue working. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye.
Pat, was there supposed to be a link that you just shared with me?
Yes.
It was just the title of it, not a link.
Oh. Okay. Let me get that.
There we go. Yeah, got it.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make sure not to lose this link, and we'll send that and the follow-ups all together.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
This was great. Thank you so much. Have a
All right.
lovely rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.